One.
Hey, my name is Angela, and I am coming to you with a couple of my friends because we want to talk to you about a brand new product that Plexus has brought to you for your kids. It's a revolutionary, it's a 2-in-1 multivitamin and probiotic that's chewable and it's tasty and it's going to make your life easier. It's not full of any junk or sugar. It's got a ton of what you do want and none of the stuff that you don't want in it. It doesn't have artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, or added preservatives. It's gluten-free, it's non-GMO, it's free of some of the most common allergens like dairy, eggs, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, and soybeans. That was a mouthful. And so we're really excited to talk to you about this and tell you what's so different about this product than anything that you have had or anything that you have seen yet. Because again, it's a 2-in-1. It's a multivitamin and it's a probiotic. So first things first, did you know that 31% of kids take supplements, but that 60% of them don't get enough vitamin D, E, or K? So that's one thing that we're going to resolve among other things. So first of all, it combines 13 essential vitamins with powerful probiotics because kids need their gut health addressed just as much as mom and dad do. So with this product, you're going to get nutrition, gut health, immune strength, and healthy brains. It's, again, a multivitamin and probiotic in one, so it's going to make your life so much easier. You're not having to get your kids to take 2 different products. So I know as a mom of 3, that makes my life easier. And it's easily absorbed for little tummies, which is really important, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk to you about tonight. So one of the things I think that we can all relate to is that kids get a lot more illnesses than we would like for them to get. I think that every time I turn around, one of my friends is posting that their kids are sick again. They've got something upper respiratory. They've got another bug. They've got another ear infection. And this says that their immune systems are struggling. And I don't know if you knew this, but every time that we take an antibiotic, it takes at least 6 months for our microbiome to start to get back to where it should be with regards to the balance that should be in there. And that's only if you're addressing it, really. So in 2010, a study showed that 74 million antibiotics were prescribed. So that says that every time that that most kids are taking antibiotics for the most part, and that this is something that we should be addressing. And when we don't address the gut health piece of it, their immune system is struggling. So it's not just the multivitamin that's needed, but the probiotic too. So I'm really excited that we have something that's got both of them in one product for you. There's really a better way to get your kids healthy. And so we're excited to kind of go over some of this and tell you how it works. I'm going to talk to you about the vitamins, and then my friends are going to talk to you about the probiotic and some other cool things and benefits about this product. So one of the things that you need to know is that the vitamins in this product are bioavailable. This means that they're easily absorbable, that the body can actually use it. So our company really prides itself on making sure that we have the cleanest, most effective forms of each vitamin. And again, that they're bioavailable. So that's something important to be looking for. It includes vitamins that the kids don't get enough of, like vitamin K. That's essential for helping with bone growth. It has our vitamin E is sourced from sunflower oil rather than a synthetic form, which is actually a really big deal. And 2 forms of vitamin A, which is exciting. Vitamin A actually is something that helps the body get calcium to the bones. So when kids don't get enough of that, that's really important that we address that. So we have 2 forms of vitamin A, and I can't actually pronounce them because I'm not very good at pronouncing those things, but just know that it's a really big deal that they use those 2 forms instead of what you would normally get in a lot of the vitamins for kids. It has vitamin B1, B2, B3, B6. There's 2 forms of the B2 and 2 forms of the B6. Oh no, not 2 forms of that, I'm sorry. I'm just reading this because there's no way I can memorize it. It has vitamin B7. It has folate instead of folic acid, which my friend is going to come and talk to you about in just a minute. It has vitamin B12, vitamin E, vitamin K, 2 forms of that, and vitamin D3. And then also has several probiotic strains that we're really excited about. So basically, that's all that I'm going to talk to you about in terms of the vitamins that are in it. And I think that Chandra was going to tell you something cool about the vitamin A forms.
Well, for me, I'm a super crunchy mama. And so I always thought that as long as anything was the whole food version, that's what I wanted. And then as I learned more for the benefit of my kids, I learned that sometimes you need both the chemical form and the whole food form to really work synergistically with the body and achieve what we're looking to accomplish. And so I was really excited that Plexus put two forms of all these vitamins together, so you don't have to choose between which one you need for which kid based on what's going on. They're both in there and they work together really well to achieve what we're trying to accomplish, which is increasing their immune system and making them more resilient. Kids don't eat as well as we want them to. We can try, and no day is perfect, and they go out in the world and they go to school and they're exposed to all sorts of stuff. And so we can't protect them completely, but making them more resilient so they get sick less. And when they do get sick, it goes through more quickly and they can get better faster. That's the goal.
Yep. And I know you were going to tell us about the folate and how important it is that we have that form instead of folic acid. So I think people will be really excited, especially if they already know why it's better to have that form.
Yeah. So specifically when it comes to B9, which is folate, and B12, which is cobalamin, you'll see on the label it says methylfolate and methylcobalamin. And so you might have seen on Facebook or in groups that there's been a lot of talk about something called MTHFR, and it sort of looks like a swear word, but I promise it's not. And why that's so important. And so some people will tell you that methylated vitamins mean more bioavailable, which is true, but there's so much more to that. And what does that really mean? So that's what I'm going to go into today. So MTHFR stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase deficiency. And so what that means is MTHFR is actually a gene. And so it's one of the many that we have. We get one from our mom, one chromosome from our mom, and one from our dad. And its job is to trigger the production of an enzyme, which is also called MTHFR, and that's necessary for methylation. What's methylation? Methylation is a metabolic process that switches genes on and off. It repairs DNA and lots of complicated stuff. But the piece that I want to focus on is that it's essential for converting folic acid and folate into methylfolate. And so methylfolate is the version of B9 that our body actually uses. And so if you eat food that's fortified with folic acid, or you take a multivitamin that has folic acid in it, which almost every prenatal vitamin that I know has folic acid in it, and both of my children actually have MTHFR, so I've been searching and combing the world for multivitamins for kids, and most of them that I find do have folic acid in it. And so if you intake folic acid, every person on the planet has to turn it into methylfolate in order for our bodies to use it. And so methylfolate is super important, and I'm just going to read this list because it's huge what methylfolate does in our body.
So wait, can I just say something to make sure that I understood this right for me? So what you're saying is that if it's in that folic acid form, and my body, if I have the MTHFR, and my body can't turn it into, what is that word? Then I'm not getting it in the first place.
Yes,
right?
so I'm going to get there. Yeah, I'm going to tell you why it's important, and then I'll talk about the difference between those of us who have it and those who don't. So methylfolate is super important for normal nerve function, proper brain function. It helps protect against cancers of the lung, colon, and cervix. It helps slow memory decline associated with aging. It helps prevent spina bifida during pregnancy, reduces blood levels of the amino acid homocysteine, and elevated levels of homocysteine have been implicated in increased risk of heart attack and stroke down the line. And so the way MTHFR works is it can be super complicated, but basically what it means is that a person who has MTHFR, which is just, a chromosomal issue that you get from your parents, if you have that, it means that your liver has a 30% ability to turn folic acid into methylfolate. And a person that does not have MTHFR has 100% ability to turn that folic acid into methylfolate. And the big sort of issue with all of this is it's brand spanking new. Like, this really sort of came to the surface when people started getting genetic testing. 23andMe came out and people started doing it sort of as a novelty. And then a lot of medical practitioners grabbed onto it and started sort of making connections between things as a result of some of these polymorphisms. And so not a lot of people know about it. And so they're finding that they're surmising that between 30 and 50% of the population have MTHFR. And so nearly half of us are walking around with this and almost no one knows. So it could be, my 2 children have it and I didn't know. They're 10 and 7 and I just found out. And so now I know better, so I can do better. And so I want to really make sure they don't have folic acid in their diets. And I want to make sure they are getting methylfolate. And so that's why it's so super important for our children, because most of our children aren't displaying any sort of issues. And MTHFR is one of those things that doesn't really have any bell ringer symptoms that would drive you to your doctor to go get tested. And so, especially when it comes to children, I'm so passionate about making sure that they're taking this form of methylfolate so that it will benefit their nerve function and their brain function and help protect their bodies in the way that we want them to.
And isn't it that it doesn't matter if they have the gene or don't have the gene, it's good for everybody?
That's right. Methylfolate
Absolutely.
So folic acid is not great for everybody. If people that don't have MTHFR, their body is able to go through those metabolic steps to turn it into folate and then to turn it into methylfolate, and that's our liver that does that. But people who have MTHFR can't do that. Whereas every single human can take methylfolate, and for someone like me who has MTHFR, I can use it. For someone who doesn't, you're just giving your liver a bit of a break because you're giving it the most bioavailable form of B9 that the body can readily use.
Right.
Awesome.
So important. And I'm just so personally proud of the company for addressing that, especially because we want to give our kids a leg up. I mean, we've already seen what happens when our health starts to spiral. And now that, like you said, now that we know better, we can do better for them. So.
Yeah. And it was the reason that I was willing to give Plexus a try. When I was researching their products and I saw that their multivitamin had methylfolate and methylcobalamin in it, I said, they're on the cutting edge of science, they get it. And I was willing to look into it deeper and give it a shot.
So awesome. I think Amber was going to talk to us next about the probiotic, right? About the probiotic and component of this, which is just so cool that we can give you one thing and make your mornings easier. That you're not trying to get 2 different things into your kids. I'm really excited about that. So.
All right, so like Angela said, I get to kick off the talk about the probiotics that are in XFactor Kids. There's actually 3 of them, and I'm going to talk to you about Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG. So for short, I'm just going to call it LGG. So I'm going to reference it a few times. And LGG is actually the most studied probiotic bacteria with over 800 studies done on it so far, and they're still going. So what do we know about this? And of course, I had to read some of these studies to gather this information. I have my notes, so I stay on track and I don't leave out anything really important. But there is so much to it, and it is such a beneficial bacteria. There's a reason why so many studies have been done on it. So a little bit about it and why Plexus chose to put this probiotic in XFactor Kids. So it has anti-pathogenic properties, and it also has immunomodulating capabilities. So what does that mean? Well, anti-pathogenic, okay, that's a simple one. So pathogens are the bad invaders that get into our body and make us sick. And LGG has anti-pathogenic capabilities. So it has the ability to fight off some of these pathogens for us. Immunomodulating literally means that it has the ability to affect our immune system in one way or another. And believe it or not, these microbes that live in our gut, they actually tell our immune system what to do. They give it the directions. And that's something that I'm going to come back to with LGG. So that's really what immunomodulating refers to. LGG, it also produces lactic acid, and lactic acid makes our GI tract inhospitable to other bad microbes. So that is another way that it can be anti-pathogenic for us. And like I said before, it will send signals to our immune system to attack certain invaders. So if we have pathogens, we have invaders that are in the gut, and it recognizes these invaders, it will literally give the directions to our immune system and say, we need these cells to go attack this pathogen, and the immune system will follow those directions. And I think that that's pretty cool. But it's also my way of trying to express the importance of the microbes that are living in our gut and making sure that we have the right strains and that we have enough of them. So how does lactobacillus affect us, or LGG? Because there's several strains of lactobacillus. So let's be, I wanted to clarify that real quick. And actually, Wendy's going to talk to you about a different strain of lactobacillus. So LGG is special in many ways. And one of the ways that it's so special is it has excellent mucus adherence capabilities. What does that mean? So we have this mucosal lining in our gut, and it is the protective barrier in our gut that keeps the things in the inside of our body out of our gut, and everything that's in our gut, it stays in our gut and doesn't escape into our bloodstream. So this mucus layer is extremely important in the health of our gut as well as our overall health. And it is also home for a lot of the microbes that live there. And LGG, it really adheres to this mucus lining. And the way that it does that is it has these little appendages called pili, and they kind of grab onto this mucus layer and they zipper onto it. That's the way that it was described, is it literally zippers itself up to that mucus lining. So why is this so important? Well, we want the good bacteria to stay in our gut, and we also want it to kind of take up shop there, because if it is colonizing in our gut, it's taking up room, it's taking up space, and it's also not allowing bad pathogens, bad microbes, other invaders to come in and kick them out. So it can really grab on and hold tight and say, nope, I live here, you can't take my space. So that's another way that LGG can be anti-pathogenic. In addition to that, we've talked about Candida in some other videos. It's a bad yeast that's in our gut, and it can really proliferate and take over and cause lots of inflammation and lots of cell damage and trigger immune reactions. And a really cool thing about LGG is it actually prevents colonization of Candida in the intestines. And if you see a video about Probiotic, which is another Plexus product, that product actually is meant to break down and kill the bad yeast in our gut. So now we have a product for our kids that can help prevent that overgrowth in the first place, and that's really exciting for us. So what else can it do? It actually can help fight off certain antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria. So we take so many antibiotics nowadays that a lot of bacteria are becoming resistant. And LGG actually has the capability of fighting off some of those bacteria all on its own. So we really want a lot of it in our gut. It's also been used for the prevention and treatment of GI infections, especially infections that are associated with diarrhea. And it can really cut down on the time that we have that diarrhea and the severity of it, and help us to get over that infection much quicker. It's also been shown to reduce the pain and the frequency of pain in children that have GI disorders that are related to pain, such as IBS. I mean, most GI disorders are associated with a lot of pain. I suffered with one for many, many years myself, and it is not fun. So to have something that's going to help reduce that just by taking a probiotic is also pretty incredible to me. Along with all of this, it will overall decrease the inflammation in the intestines. And that is a massive thing when we're talking about gut health and overall health, because that's also telling the immune system to calm down at the same time. So what can LGG do for us outside of our gut? It's actually pretty cool. And parents are going to want to listen to this part because it has a lot to do with how our kids get sick. So it has been shown to reduce the bacteria that is associated with the formation of dental caries. Well, what's a dental carie? I never heard of this word before I started researching this. A dental carie is actually the beginning formation of a cavity. So we always think, okay, sugar causes cavities, but it's actually the bacteria and the yeast and stuff that resides in our mouth that's eating these sugars, and then it's growing, and that's decaying the tooth and preventing and creating these dental caries. So LGG can actually reduce that bacteria in our mouth and help to prevent those dental caries from forming. It also reduces the risk of respiratory tract infections, the frequency of getting respiratory tract infections, as well as the frequency of ear infections. And I have 2 little girls, and they certainly do not get as sick as they used to. But I think anyone that's had a kid, or has a child, I should say, we have experienced respiratory tract infections and also ear infections with them. So if we have something that can help reduce that frequency, that's amazing. And then just getting into like hospitalized stuff, it also helps prevent hospitalized patients that are on a ventilator from contracting certain bacteria associated with pneumonia. So this is a really powerful probiotic. And like I mentioned before, it's the most studied. There's over 800 studies done on this particular one. And that's really why Plexus chose it. And the fact that it colonizes better in newborns and children than it does in adults is another reason that they chose to put it in XFactor Kids. And this one has also been tested on pregnant women, low birth weight infants, people, HIV patients, as well as patients that are on ventilators, and it has been deemed safe for all of those different types of people. So again, just going back to some of the reasons that this particular strain was chosen to go into XFactor Kids, and I think it's pretty awesome. So Wendy, I know that was a lot, but really I condensed it for you, believe it or not. But there's 800 studies, so you can imagine the information that's out there. So Wendy is going to talk to you all now about the other 2 strains that are in XFactor Kids.
Awesome. And I'm really excited because a lot of the information that Amber just shared matches these other 2 probiotics. They're very similar in some of the things they do. So the first thing, just as, for you to imagine your child, and yourself as well, adults, it doesn't matter. Our bodies are like this fabulous village or a city. And we have both the good bacteria and the bad bacteria, and they work together. Like, you have to have a little bit of everything. Some of them, so in my research that I've been reading, is that some of our bacteria are residential. They actually live there and they're with us. And then some are more transient, and they're only in for a brief amount of time. They set up shop, they do what they're supposed to, and then they kind of move out through the bowels. And so these bacteria, the probiotic strains that we're talking about, are actually the residential. And these are the things that they need. So I'm going to talk about 2. One of them is another lactobacillus, but it's acidophilus, so L. acidophilus. And the other one is Bifidobacterium lactis. Now, Bifidobacteria, there's a whole group of these probiotics that fall under that. And one of the things that I read, first of all, it's a residential one. When babies are born, they're like, brand new, clean slate, and they pick up their first bacteria during birth. Okay, so that's really important. As they're being born, they're coming through the birth canal, that they are picking up some of that bifidobacteria. And it says it's so highly beneficial. And actually, for babies that are born, it says it accounts for over 90% of their microbial count. And it's also, that in breastfed babies. So they're receiving this really good probiotic just in their in the time that they're born, and then they're fed through that the breastfeeding. So what's really great about the bifidobacteria that I want to talk about is, first of all, it resists acid digestion. So it's awesome that we're going to be able to take this strain that is really important, and it's going to make it into the small intestines where it belongs. It's not going to be killed off while it's going through their stomach. It helps to resist, it helps to reduce the number of colds and flu. It also helps to get them through that faster, so if they do get sick. Bifidobacterium lactis is proven to help enhance their immune system, their immunity. It improves digestion. So here's the cool thing. So what Amber just shared really just matches well what these other 2 strains do. So they support each other. It's a really great combination. One of the really great things that the bifidobacterium does is that it helps to decrease the intestinal permeability. Now, we've been talking about a lot with Plexus people and seeing it on other posts and in the news, but this thing called leaky gut. Well, leaky gut is because all of a sudden our intestinal wall is more permeable than it should be, and things are going through that should not be getting through. And so this actually helps to decrease that. And that's a great thing, again, that your child is going to get it before it becomes damaged. It's actually shown that this bifidobacteria starts to decrease with age. So as we're aging, we're losing some of that good bacteria because of all of the things that we're going through with what we eat, just through stress, not sleeping well, not eating well, all of these different things. When we are on antibiotics, on different medications, it is messing with our gut village. And so this is actually going to help your child get stronger with that and have those great residents become a strength for them and not start depleting very early in their life. It also says that it decreases their lactose intolerance. How many times do we find kids that can't drink milk or have other ways of getting some of the milk in because of the lactose intolerance? And this helps to decrease that. It normalizes bowel movements. We're not talking just about keeping them from getting diarrhea or being constipated, but it normalizes it. And so just having them on a regular basis is going to help you making sure that your child is getting rid of the toxins that's been building up from what they've been eating as they are digesting. It also is part of that decreasing the cavity-causing bacteria that Amber had already mentioned, decreases inflammatory responses of the skin. So imagine any of the skin breakouts or eczema, those kinds of things that are coming from a bacteria on the inside. This is helping to reduce some of the inflammatory response that the skin gives. So that's our bifidobacterium lactis that I want to tell you about. Now I want to tell you about the lactobacillus, or the L. acidophilus. And this one, just like the LGG, it is an amazing colonizer. And why is that so important? We just heard it's because it goes in and it sets up its village, it sets up its colony in such a way that the bad bacteria can't. There's no space for it. So that's what we want, is we want to be able to protect their lining by getting it colonized with the right things. So this is going to give it a real great strong colony. And it's going to help protect from any of the invaders that are trying to come in and set up their residency. It can show that, some of the studies have shown that it plays a role in reducing the number of respiratory infections. Again, that's part of that L. acidophilus, the same as the LGG. The diarrhea, the bloating, the cramping, the gas, the things that go along with that GI distress. This is going to help to reduce those. And I know that when you've got a child who's dealing with those issues, they don't want to eat because they know it's going to hurt their stomach. Or maybe it's going to make it so they can't go to the bathroom and they don't want to have to do that, or they feel full because they're constipated. So this is going to help to relieve that so you can get them eating well, instead of just eating little bits or things that they is really not great for them. You're going to help get their system moving in such a great way that they're going to be able to eat and do that in a healthy way. Again, the same thing, L. acidophilus helps with reduce the occurrence of the skin breakout with eczema. And here's this one, is it lowers cholesterol. So isn't that awesome that we can start our kids off in their health in a way that's healthy cholesterol and not having it already starting to climb? Because this really goes in and specifically gets rid of some of the bad cholesterol. So I wanted to make sure that I covered everything with that. We have so much that we can keep talking about. I think what's just really so important to understand is these three bacteria, these strains that we're talking about, they are the residents. They're supposed to be there so that they are taking up the bulk of the space, so the bad ones and the pathogens can't come in and take up their own residence. So they are a powerhouse to get your kids healthy. And it's done in a nice, tasty, chewable format too.
Yeah, well, and that's something that I want to wrap up with. And thank you so much for all of that. I know that, so you know, everybody has just heard some really exciting information. Maybe for some people, it went a little bit over your head. It's just because you probably haven't heard a lot about it in your lifetime, but believe me, this is becoming more and more understood every day. It's a very exciting area of research and discovery, and it's really changing things. I wanted to give you kind of bookend this with some of my experience. I actually have 3 kids. 2 of my kids are adults, and 1 is still in elementary school. And way back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and that bifidobacteria that you heard Wendy talking about is one of the probiotics that I would go into a little Whole Foods store, health store, and I would get these tablets and I would crush them up and put them in applesauce, put them in yogurt for my kids. And it was a daily thing that I was trying to make sure they were getting all those vitamins and make sure that this was not something a lot of people knew about at that time, but it was something I was focused on. And what I will tell you is this: it was complicated, it was overwhelming, and I took it on like it was a part-time job. It was really a big thing, and it wasn't as effective as what we're offering to you in this product. And what I can tell you is that after doing all of that, my 2 adult children still ended up with some issues that once we got them on the Plexus products and once we got them on these probiotics and took care of it, which we're now presenting to you guys in a children's chewable form, which would have been fabulous for me to have because it tastes good, and that once we took care of that, some of these issues went away for my kids. And I thought, well, gosh, you know, there's really nothing to complain about here. We've made it so much easier. I wish it had been that easy for me when I had them when they were little. What it boils down to is that as parents, we want to take the new knowledge that we get and we want to use it sooner than later and arm our kids to grow up and make them the healthiest version of themselves that they can be. That's what we do as parents. That's what we care about. We want to make them healthy and be able to make the most of their lives. And so this is just a strategy that you have at your fingertips. I just want to remind you that the typical gummy vitamin that you might pick up has over a teaspoon of sugar. And so here we have like 13% of parents are making sure their kids get enough fruits and vegetables every day, but the average 4 to 8-year-old is consuming 15 teaspoons of added sugar a day in their diet, which is just not good. So we don't want to add to that with their vitamins. So we're really excited that we get to present all of this to you in a package. It's not adding to the sugar, giving them what they need and not what they don't need. And of course, we're addressing the gut health, which affects everything from their mood to their digestive health to their immune system strength. And who wouldn't want to help their kids in those ways? So it's pretty simple: clean, non-GMO. These are things that we're all focused on now that we know better and we're trying to do better. So, you know, and no more struggling to get them to take yucky stuff or swallow pills. I went through all that. We've made it easier. So you can do this and you can feel great about it. And I hope this video has been really helpful for you. If you have questions, just go back to the ambassador that sent you this video, and they'll help you get those questions answered or tell you how to order. So thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.